Guys, if you're like me and you have trouble falling asleep, listen up. Our friends at Dream Honey have created a delicious, sweet melatonin-infused honey as an all-natural alternative to traditional sleep supplements. Dream Honey will help you fall asleep fast, stay asleep through the night, and wake up feeling ready to take on the next day. It's drug-free, non-habit forming. It tastes just like the sweet honey that you're familiar with. Dream Honey is the most convenient melatonin supplement on the market, and it tastes incredible. Take a spoonful by itself or mix it in with your nighttime tea. You can even bake with it or put it in your protein smoothie. It is the sweetest way to fall asleep. Are you ready to give it a try? Go to dreamhoney.com. Use the promo code Chael20. That's going to get you 20% off your first order. Go to dreamhoney.com, promo code Chael20, or just click on the link below. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you do or say will be used against you in future negotiations. You have the right to representation. If you obtain representation, you will be held liable for whatever stupid things they say on your behalf. Do you understand your rights as I just explained them to you? Look, everything's a negotiation. If you are ever doing media, it is a negotiation. It's either you with the boys on the second floor in the office in the UFC. It's you seeking sponsorships. It's you for seminars and or books or t-shirts deals. It's you trying to get the audience to set time and money aside to come and watch you. Everything is a negotiation, or you're wasting your breath. Now, it's extremely relevant. Leon Edwards is going to be given an opportunity that if anybody has earned, if anybody has earned the right, I know we don't do what's fair over here, and I know, but if we do, when we try to, and there is some semblance that we would at least like to, Leon's the guy. Leon deserves, in a sport in a world that you don't even get to use the word deserve, he deserves to be fighting for the championship of the world. Now, I followed Leon very closely, because it even made me feel bad at times. At times I thought, this isn't fair. If anybody had it rough in the pandemic, it was Leon. I got to rewind the tape 2 years and tell you everything that he went through, but he was ready to fight and who he was going to fight, and his opponents pull out, and the major opportunities he was going to get. Then all of a sudden he's ready to go and he can't get an airline's ticket out of the country that he lives in. Like, everything was really tough for Leon, and he found a way. He found a way and he moved forward. Now, one of Leon's great gripes is that I am in a position I deserve and I should be getting to, right? Fill in the blank. Fight Kamaru, fight for the championship. It wasn't always Kamaru. Leon's claim to be the number one contender dates all the way back to the Tyron Woodley era. So it wasn't always about this rematch with Usman. It was the opportunity to close out the night, be a main event, and moreover, win a world championship. And his claim was always, look at what I've done. I've won 4 fights in a row. I haven't lost in 18 months. Look at what I've done. I won 6 fights in a row. I have not lost in 3 years. Look at what I have done. I have gone 8 fights without a defeat. I have not lost in 5 years. So really strong points. And he wanted to use the number. He wanted to use what he was ranked. He's always wanted these things, right? He's been a real purist. And everybody's a purist when the purity favors you. And everybody's a capitalist when the mere business and bureaucracy favors you. I understand that. But if you're going to hang your hat on one of those arguments, you only have to be one thing, which is consistent. You just got to be consistent to it, because Leon has now come out and he said, if I win the championship over Usman, right, I'm now the champion. I've got some level of a magic wand to wave over who I'm going to fight next. I am going to fight George Masvidal. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to do it in England. Now, Leon versus Masvidal, first off, can't happen if Leon wins. It most certainly can happen if Leon loses, but it can only happen if Leon loses. And I'm only trying to bring to you that the great purist who thought that an opportunity and a placement on a card and a world title appearance was being taken from him because it wasn't as good for business. His star was not as bright. People were not quite aware of his story and who he was, is now saying, if I'm in the position to decide, I'm going to give it to a guy who's lost his last 3 fights, who has no ranking whatsoever and no claim whatsoever to a championship match. I think that's a little bit of a problem. Don't you? Don't you see where this goes against everything? Now, Leon should be fighting George Masvidal. Leon truly should. That three-piece in a soda is very real. The way George played through that, this organic moment, that whole thing, Leon should be given the opportunity to go out and force George to answer for it. And you guys all agree. Everybody wants to see the fight. I'm just speaking to the idea, if those guys are going to fight, it is absolutely paramount that Leon does not beat Kamaru Usman. If Leon loses to Kamaru Usman, boom, we can do that Masvidal fight tonight. We could sign and get that thing figured out right now. But I'm more speaking to you to the idea of there was nothing to gain by making that claim. Masvidal is a huge star. Masvidal is going to be a money fight. That is all true. You can have the fight, but you can't have both. You can't have the championship and have the fight. So now in a mythical world where that's never going to happen, you've now showed your hand. Whatever is to happen to you in the future, whatever type of negotiating that you want to do, and you've been doing it from the last 4 years from a position of purity. The purity argument is now gone, and the bureaucracy argument now comes into play, and you're part of it because you said you would do this, right? It was just one of these things. It was one of these things where why bring that up? You're not going to get the fight. We're not in a position to get that fight. But now you've used this card and shown what you would do if you were put in that position. It was a miss. It was a mistake. I don't want to go beat him over the head with it. He did a very nice interview. Leon's doing a very good job of making us all interested in this fight, which has always been a weakness of Leon, because he truly is a purist. That's who he is in his heart. He's here to compete. You advance. Eventually, that's going to get me to a title. He's beating everybody in front of him. I mean, I'm very pro Leon. And I will tell you one thing about this fight that nobody's really talking about, Leon versus Usman. You guys understand what elevation is? And I don't mean that to condescend to you. Like, you've probably heard the term before, the higher elevation you go and what it does to your red blood cells and it creates fatigue, but that's real. It maybe played out in front of your eyes more than any other time was the night Verdum fought Kane. Verdum got to Mexico City 30 days early to acclimate. Kane was the big Mexican star. He just came in on fight week. Travel on Tuesday, you kind of recover a little bit on Wednesday, do some media on Thursday, hit the scales on Friday, you're in the ring on Saturday. And it showed elevation is a very real thing. How you're going to acclimate, how you're going to get those red blood cells, it's very relevant. And Salt Lake City, I hope that they're taking this into consideration. Now, Usman, a period of time ago, has gone to train at elevation. That's what Colorado's all about. The United States Olympic Training Center is placed in Colorado Springs. There's not a whole lot in Colorado Springs. One of the reasons that our government, who funded the whole thing, chose to put it there, one of the primary reasons is because of the elevation. And I'm just bringing that to you now with Salt Lake City. What precautions are going to be done by these athletes? Because that is going to greatly, if nothing's going to be done. Both athletes fly in on the day that the UFC bought their tickets. They don't go above and beyond to do what Verdum did, just by example, and Verdum's entire team did 30 days prior to the contest. If they just go apples to apples on that, it is going to greatly favor Kamaru Usman. Just what he's used to. Just what he does every day when he's training in Colorado. I just want to bring that to your guys' attention now. I think we're going to hear more about this, and if we don't hear about it prior to the fight, I guarantee you we're going to hear it after the fight when one of these athletes uses it as an excuse. So as this fight gets closer, we're going to be talking about it more. Even if I gave Leon a hard time today, I don't have a problem with Leon trying to get the Masvidal fight. I think that he should get Masvidal. I think the three-piece in a soda was real. I think that Leon handled that like a real gentleman, and that had to be hard to do. Right there on home soil, and you get touched up in the back, and you don't ever get an answer for it. The guy that does it to you goes on to be at Madison Square Garden, get a beautiful pelt put around his waist, beautiful contract, goes on to be the second biggest star in the entire sport, and you're just trying to get a title opportunity. I really do think that he should get that fight. I'm just not sure why he called for it. He called for a fight that he simply can't get. It wouldn't matter if he had the championship. It wouldn't matter if he had all the money in the world. It wouldn't matter if he was owed a favor. He cannot win the championship and get Masvidal next. He can get Masvidal next. He just has to lose to Kamaru. So it was a wasted play. It was a wasted play that now can be shoved in your face for every negotiation that you ever do in the future because you showed who you really are. You're the same as everybody else, which is you just want the biggest fight for the most money. Nothing wrong with that. But once you disclose it, you're now stuck in that pool.